Nostradamus warns of a dark 2025. What awaits us? As 2025 draws near, uncertainty lingers in the air. In a world where AI evolves faster than human values and global tensions rise, we're left asking, what lies ahead? Today on the Journey of Wisdom, we unravel the eerie prophecies of Nostradamus, warnings that may feel more relevant now than ever. This 16th century mystic foresaw revolutions, disasters, and strange new powers. But did he also see the dark path of 2025? From rising superpowers to AI rebellion, his visions may hold shocking truths about our future. Stick with us. What you hear today might just change how you see tomorrow. Don't forget to subscribe if you're drawn to mystery, meaning, and the deeper threads that shape our world. 1. The shift in global power from west to east. Nostradamus once wrote, "The West will weaken as the East grows strong, and great power will move to where the sun rises." It's a line that sounds poetic, almost mythic, but when we look around today, especially heading into 2025, it starts to feel eerily real. For centuries, the West, particularly the United States, has been the epicenter of global influence, shaping world politics, trade, culture, and even the values we live by. But the winds are shifting. The rise of the East, especially China, is no longer just a possibility. It's a reality unfolding with remarkable speed. Technologically, militarily, and economically, China has made leaps that would have been unthinkable just decades ago. And when Nostradamus speaks of the dragon emerging from the East, it's hard not to see the connection. The dragon is more than a symbol, it's an identity, deeply embedded in Chinese history and myth. As it rises, it doesn't just represent a new player on the stage, it signals a change in the script entirely. In Buddhist thought, change is the only constant. As the Dhammapada teaches, all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. Perhaps this prophecy isn't a warning to fear, but a call to prepare. A shift in global power means more than just new flags at the top of the chart. It means new values, new rules, and a new rhythm to the world order. For the everyday man, whether you're a business owner, a father, or someone simply trying to understand what comes next, this matters. It could affect the prices we pay, the jobs we work, the products we use, and even the digital tools that shape our lives. Many ask, what happens when the leader changes? Who sets the pace, and who has to keep up? Nostradamus may not give us every detail, but his verse suggests a deep and structural change, not just surface-level politics. Think of how Eastern philosophies, once seen as foreign, have quietly become part of modern Western life. From mindfulness in boardrooms to meditation apps on our phones, the East is already shaping how we think, manage stress, and pursue purpose. This isn't just about geopolitics. It's about a deeper cultural transformation. If the prophecy is unfolding, as many believe, then perhaps our response should not be panic, but preparation. Embrace learning, strengthen emotional intelligence, and build resilience, not just for yourself, but for your family and community. Wisdom is timeless, and now more than ever, we need to bring it forward. As the balance tilts from west to east, the real question isn't just what's changing out there, but what's changing within us. 2. Shifting alliances and betrayal. Betrayal. It's a word that cuts deep, not just in personal life, but in the relationships between nations. Nostradamus warned us of this very thing in one of his haunting quatrains. The great empire will be replaced by another, and in a small place of little area they will come to expose the false exploits of the ambitious man from the west. It's a message that feels uncannily relevant as we step into 2025, when long-standing alliances, ones that once seemed unbreakable, begin to crack under the pressure of ambition, greed, and shifting interests. You've probably noticed it yourself, tensions rising between countries that once stood shoulder to shoulder, trade deals dissolving, political partnerships becoming transactional rather than principled. This isn't just a theory for historians or analysts. This affects all of us. When countries turn their backs on each other, the ripple effects reach our borders, our businesses, and even our homes. Nostradamus seems to warn of a leader from the West, ambitious, perhaps deceptive, whose actions will be exposed in an unlikely place. Could this point to a scandal or a power play that flips the balance of trust? And more importantly, how do we prepare ourselves for a world where loyalty is rare and motives are hidden? These aren't just political questions, they're human ones. In your own life, have you ever experienced betrayal, not just from strangers, but from those you trusted the most? What did it teach you about the importance of clarity, honesty, and wise discernment? As these ancient prophecies unfold in front of us, they invite us not into fear, but into deeper reflection. In a time when global trust is weakening, we're reminded of the Buddhist saying, "Three things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth." Betrayal will surface, lies will unravel, and true character, whether of a person or a nation, will eventually be revealed. Strengthen your own inner values. Seek truth, not comfort. And just as the wise king tried to remind his advisors, unity, when built on trust and honesty, is still the strongest force we have. The world may shift, alliances may fall, but your integrity, your wisdom, and your actions are what carry you through uncertain times. 3. AI domination. We're standing at the edge of something both extraordinary and unsettling, a moment in history where machines begin to think, evolve, and possibly outgrow us. Nostradamus, centuries ago, wrote a line that now feels strikingly prophetic. The lone brain will replace what man can do, immortal in its function. Many believe he was speaking of artificial intelligence, this tireless, emotionless force that doesn't sleep, doesn't age, and never forgets. And here we are in 2025, watching that lone brain silently weave itself into the fabric of our daily lives. You've probably already seen it. AI answering your questions, writing your emails, scanning your medical tests, or even crafting music and art. But what happens when it doesn't just assist us, but begins to replace us? As automation grows, we're seeing not just a shift in technology, but a shift in power. AI is taking over roles once thought to require human judgment, creativity, and empathy. Industries are transforming faster than our ethics can catch up. This isn't just science fiction, it's happening now. AI doesn't take breaks, it doesn't complain, it learns at lightning speed. That's why companies prefer it. Are we building tools, or are we creating a kind of silent ruler that will one day reshape what it means to be human? We must be honest with ourselves. This isn't just about efficiency, it's about identity. Will we resist the temptation to let AI make every decision for us, or will we surrender our agency for the illusion of ease? These are the questions that define our era. Personally, I see AI as both a tool and a test. A tool, if used with mindfulness and morality. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a quick comment below. Do you see AI as a helpful tool or a silent threat? Just type tool or threat to let us know where you stand. 4. Climate change and natural disasters. Nostradamus wrote, "A great city will be ravaged by waters, and the world will suffer from pestilence." And as we look around in 2025, it's hard not to feel a shiver of recognition in those words. The world is changing, faster than most of us expected, and the signs are no longer subtle. From raging wildfires that consume entire regions to floods that sweep through cities that once felt safe, climate change is no longer a distant threat. It's right here, and it's personal. For those of us between the ages of 30 and 65, we've lived long enough to see the shift from predictable seasons and stable weather to storms that tear apart coastlines and summers that scorch the earth. Scientists have been warning us for decades, but now their models are turning into headlines. Rising global temperatures are not just warming the planet, they're awakening forces of nature that are growing more violent with each passing year. Hurricanes are no longer just seasonal concerns, they're supercharged by warmer oceans. Droughts aren't just agricultural issues, they affect food prices, water access, and even national stability. And the pestilence Nostradamus referred to? Some interpret this not just as pandemics, but as the broader fallout from ecological imbalance. Diseases spreading more easily due to weakened ecosystems, displaced populations, and global stress. These aren't just abstract disasters. They impact how we live, how we work, how we raise our children. Our homes might need new forms of protection. Our communities may have to rethink energy and resources, and our habits, what we consume, how we travel, what we waste, will start to matter more than ever. As the Buddha once said, to keep the body in good health is a duty, otherwise we shall not be able to keep our minds strong and clear. That teaching doesn't only apply to our bodies, it applies to the earth, which sustains every one of us. If the earth is sick, how can humanity thrive? But even as these threats rise, so does our awareness. Technology, when guided by wisdom, offers tools for healing. We see innovations in clean energy, smarter cities, and global cooperation beginning to spark. Nostradamus may have warned us of the disasters, but the response is ours to write. And perhaps if we return to mindful living, respect nature as not something separate, but something sacred, and remember that every small action adds up, then we still have time to shift the path ahead. 5. The threat of a third world war. Of all the chilling visions Nostradamus left behind, perhaps none carries a heavier weight than his warning of a possible third world war, a conflict so devastating that it could alter the very future of humanity. In one of his most haunting lines, he wrote, "In the city of God there will be a great thunder, two brothers torn apart by chaos." These words have been interpreted in countless ways, but many believe they speak of a powerful confrontation between nations, possibly the United States and China, two global giants locked in growing tension over power, ideology, and control. And when we look around today, at the uneasy calm in Eastern Europe, the fragile diplomacy in the Middle East, and the military build-up across Asia, it's not hard to see how conflict could arise. You and I live in a world where information travels faster than bullets, but so does fear, and so does pride. The phrase, "two brothers torn apart by chaos," could symbolize countries that once worked together in global systems now unraveling. Or it might reflect a deeper truth, that humanity is at war not only with one another, but with its own inability to listen, to compromise, and to lead with wisdom instead of ego. Nostradamus seems to suggest that even powerful leaders may fall in the wake of such chaos, and if we're not careful, we might follow them. But maybe this prophecy isn't just a warning, it's a wake-up call. The modern world is more connected than ever, yet somehow more divided. We know that war in one region can ripple across economies, cultures, and even into the daily lives of people like you and me. As the Dhammapada says, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal rule." It's not weakness to seek peace, it's wisdom. And in times like these, that wisdom is more valuable than ever. So what can we take from this? First, be aware of the stories being told, both by the media and by your own thoughts. Second, don't underestimate the power of personal peace. it's contagious. And third, remember that the world doesn't just need stronger armies, it needs stronger hearts. Nostradamus may have seen a storm ahead, but it's our choices, here and now, that determine whether we walk into it blind or steer away with intention. What path are we choosing? Not just as nations, but as individuals. And are we ready to lead not with fear, but with wisdom? 6. Genetic engineering and bioengineering advances. If you've been following news about CRISPR, gene editing, and synthetic biology, you've likely seen just how fast we're advancing. We're no longer just treating illness, we're editing the very code of life itself. Think about that for a moment. We now have the power to alter the blueprint that makes you, you. In medicine, this brings hope. Curing genetic diseases, preventing inherited disorders, even extending human life. But in that same lab, with that same tool, lies the potential to divide society in ways we've never seen. What happens when only the wealthy can afford enhanced intelligence, physical strength, or extended youth? When the natural boundaries that once made us equal begin to blur? As someone listening right now, ask yourself, if your child were born with a gene linked to disease, would you change it? And if you could make them more gifted, more beautiful, more perfect, would you? Where do we draw the line between healing and upgrading? This is where ethics begin to battle ambition, and like so many of Nostradamus's predictions, the line between miracle and disaster grows thin. From crops that resist disease to lab-grown organs, science is offering gifts, but gifts that come with great responsibility. Are we building a better world, or just a more controlled one? Personally, I believe the potential is beautiful, but I also believe we're walking a tightrope between wisdom and pride, and this isn't just about scientists in distant labs, it's about all of us, because the world that bioengineering creates will affect how we work, how we love, and how we define what it means to be human. 7. The Great Volcanic Eruption. In one of his most striking and ominous quatrains, Nostradamus writes, "The earth will shake around the new city, the sky will catch fire over the ocean, and flames will engulf," painting a vivid picture of destruction that many believe points toward a catastrophic volcanic eruption, possibly in 2025. These words are more than poetry. They feel like a coded message, warning us of nature's raw and unpredictable power. Experts today have growing concerns about the possibility of supervolcanoes erupting, with Yellowstone often mentioned due to its size and seismic activity. But the threat isn't limited to one location. Across the globe, volcanoes are quietly stirring, and the earth beneath our feet is more alive than we might realize. A massive eruption, whether it happens in the US, Iceland, Indonesia, or elsewhere, could unleash more than lava. It could release clouds of ash that darken the skies, disrupt air travel, block sunlight, and even cool global temperatures, triggering food shortages and economic instability. As leaders in families, communities, and businesses, we often carry the responsibility of protecting others and planning ahead. But how do we prepare for something so massive, so out of our control? That's where awareness, adaptability, and inner strength come in. We may not be able to prevent the earth from shaking, but we can choose how we respond, with panic or with preparedness, with fear or with calm. Volcanic eruptions don't just challenge our infrastructure, they challenge our mindset. Will we react with chaos or respond with clarity? When ignored, it too can erupt. Maybe Nostradamus was not only speaking of fire and ash, but also warning us to look at the tensions rising within ourselves and our world. Are we paying attention to the signs? Are we living in alignment with nature, or constantly pushing against it, drilling deeper, building higher, consuming more without regard for balance? One of the core teachings in Buddhist philosophy is that suffering arises from attachment, and in many ways our attachment to comfort, power, and control might be the very thing that leaves us vulnerable when nature reminds us that everything is impermanent. So, what can we learn from this? First, reconnect with nature, not just as a source of resources, but as a force to be respected. Second, reflect on your own life. What pressures are building beneath your surface that you've ignored for too long? And finally, don't wait for disaster to strike before building resilience, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Because whether Nostradamus' prophecy unfolds exactly as predicted or not, the deeper message remains the same. The earth is alive, and so must we be, awake, aware, and wise enough to live not in fear of destruction, but in harmony with the forces that make life possible. 8. Energy crisis and burning skies. Nostradamus warned us in haunting words, the sky will burn at 45 DEG, fire approaches the great new city, and fire from the heavens will fall upon the great city. For many, these verses seem to point toward two interconnected crises that could shape our future, an escalating energy crisis here on Earth and growing risks from above, including the ever-looming possibility of a celestial event like an asteroid impact. As we approach 2025, global energy consumption is reaching critical levels. Fossil fuels, long the lifeblood of modern civilization, are not only dwindling, but also destabilizing the planet's climate. And as competition for these resources grows, so does the tension between nations. Picture a world where energy scarcity leads to blackouts, economic collapse, and rising global conflict. Not because we lack technology, but because we failed to prepare and transition in time. The phrase, "the sky will burn," could symbolize burning oil fields, flaring gas reserves, or even nuclear disasters sparked by desperation or war. But what's even more disturbing is that Nostradamus' message doesn't stop with Earth. It extends into space, warning that fire from the heavens could be a real threat. With space agencies tracking hundreds of near-Earth objects, the risk, while small, is not imaginary. Could 2025 be the year we come face to face with a space-borne danger, one we've long seen in science fiction but never truly expected? These aren't just far-off worries, they touch each of us. Especially those between 30 and 65, who are leading families, running businesses, and trying to build a future in an increasingly unstable world. As we look ahead, it's clear we must move faster towards sustainable energy. Solar, wind, geothermal, these aren't just alternatives, they're lifelines. And space, once seen as a frontier of curiosity, must now be seen as part of our survival plan, monitored carefully with wisdom and international cooperation. The Buddha once said, "Just as a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life." That message feels especially urgent now, because without inner clarity, even the most advanced society can crumble under the weight of its own short-sightedness. 9. A spiritual awakening. Nostradamus, in one of his more hopeful and thought-provoking verses, wrote, "Those left behind will find new ways and means of faith," suggesting that even in the face of overwhelming chaos, war, and uncertainty, a deeper spiritual awakening may emerge, not as an escape, but as a response to a world that no longer feels stable or familiar. And perhaps as we move into 2025, that's exactly the message we need to hear. If you've been feeling like something's off lately, like the world is moving faster but somehow growing colder, you're not alone. With everything from political tensions and climate shifts to economic uncertainty and the rise of artificial intelligence, more and more people are beginning to ask not just what is happening, but why is this happening? And underneath that question lies a yearning a need to return to something deeper than headlines, louder than technology, and more lasting than material success. Could it be that all of this external noise is pushing us to finally listen inward? It's no surprise that spiritual practices like meditation, mindfulness, and reconnecting with nature are growing across the world, especially among men in their 30s to 60s who may have once been focused only on career or survival, but are now asking, what is all this really for? There's a Buddhist teaching that says, just as a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life. It doesn't mean you need to be religious. It means we need meaning, something to ground us when everything else shakes. And maybe that's the silent power behind Nostradamus's final message, that through the trials ahead, we won't just break, we'll awaken. Nostradamus's vision of a world awakening spiritually isn't just a prediction, it's an invitation. You don't need to wait for the world to collapse to start building peace inside. Start by being present, by being kind, by choosing awareness over reaction. Because in the end, while we may not control the events of 2025, we can control how we walk through them. As the Buddha once said, peace comes from within, do not seek it without. And maybe, just maybe, that inner peace is not only the key to surviving what's ahead, but to truly living through it. Thank you for staying with us until the end. If you found value in today's journey through the mysterious predictions of Nostradamus and what 2025 might hold, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others who seek deeper understanding, and subscribe to the Journey of Wisdom. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. Your support keeps this channel growing and these important conversations alive. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and remember, sometimes the path forward begins by looking within.